Hey Sam, why don't you tell us a bit about Google Tag Manager, what it is, what it does?
Tag Manager is a way to manage code snippets on your website. A code snippet is generally something that will help you integrate a third-party app into your site. So that can be a few different things. It could be something like Google Analytics, where you're tracking events on your website and page views. It could be something like HotJar, which is used for screen recordings and heat maps. And it can also be used for things that your website visitors actually interact with, such as Drift or other chat platforms that get integrated onto websites.
That sounds good. Can you just show us an example of what a code snippet would look like?
Sure. So normally to integrate something like Hotjar, we'll use that as an example. You would have to enter this code here onto your website. So you might have to work with a developer to do that, or you would have to do it yourself.
Right. So how do we set up Google Tag Manager?
Google Tag Manager does require you enter two snippets of code on your website. There's one little piece of code you have to enter in the head element, and then there's one that you have to put right into the body tag of your website. So you do need a little bit of setup for it. However, it's the only snippet that you'll need to enter on your website, as Tag Manager itself will handle all other snippets for you. This is the main screen you'll see when you enter Google Tag Manager. There's three main objects we'll be working with here. There's tags over here on the left. Tags are just the snippets of code you'll be entering onto your website. In some cases, Google Tag Manager actually has built-in integrations with tags, so you don't have to do as much code. We'll see that in particular with the Hotjar tag that we'll implement today. Triggers are going to control when the tags actually show up. So you can fire certain tags on certain pages of your website. An example of that is if you only want to have live chat support on a subset of the pages on your website, you can create a trigger for those pages and then only show it on them. A variable, you might remember from algebra class, is just a placeholder. So for example, we can put in our Google Analytics ID as a variable, and then every time we use a tag with Google Analytics in it, we'll just use that variable so we don't have to type in the same numbers from our Google Analytics account.
Right. And just to recap, tags are kind of like the apps that we're going to be installing, and triggers are just when those applications or those tags actually start doing something, start firing.
Exactly. Okay, so we're going to start with implementing the Hotjar tag. So we're going to add the Hotjar tag to Alex's website extractor API. Hotjar is an awesome piece of software that lets you view heat maps of activity on your website and also screen recordings. And Hotjar actually has a very simple integration with Tag Manager. So I'll guide you through that here. We're just going to go up to tags and create a new tag. This is the default screen that you'll see. We have to add a tag and a trigger. So first, before I forget, I'm just going to name it Hotjar tag. And then we're going to go into tag configuration. And over on the right are all the types of tags that Google has a native integration for. So you're going to see a lot of Google products, Analytics, Optimize, which we're going to go into a little bit later. If there's no default integration, you can do a custom HTML, and then there's more down here. So like I said earlier, Hotjar actually has an integration. So all we have to do here is enter our Hotjar site ID. So you can just put in a site ID here, and you'll replace this, of course, with your actual site ID from Hotjar. So that's all there is to adding the actual tag portion of it. We now just have to add a trigger. So there's a built-in trigger in Tag Manager for all pages. We're just going to click that, which means that it will fire on all pages. And then we hit save. And that is it for adding the Hotjar tag to all pages on the website. So you might be asking yourself, how can we verify that this has successfully been added? And answering that question is one of the best things that Google Tag Manager does. They have a preview feature, which we're going to use to actually see what tags are firing on the website. We see this big orange banner letting us know that we are in preview mode. Then I'm going to go to the website and I'm just going to refresh. Okay, so as you can see, there's this giant container at the bottom of the page that is the Google Tag Manager preview. So the summary is just going to show us a list of all the events that fired on the web page. And you can see here under tags fired that the HotJar tag did fire. So we know that it's successfully been installed. I'm going to go to just the features page as well. And here again, since we have it set to fire on all pages, you can see that it fired on this page. Okay, so I'm just gonna go to the pricing page real quick. What we're gonna do is we're gonna set up a trigger based on this URL, the extractor API pricing URL. And let's go back to Tag Manager. So I'm gonna click back into the HotJar tag here, and we're gonna go back to triggers. We're gonna edit. I'm going to remove the all pages trigger because we don't want that. So we're going to add a trigger. We can actually just make a new trigger right from here by clicking this plus sign in the upper right. So making a new trigger, and I'm going to name it pricing page view because we're only concerned about the pricing page. All right, so you can just click anywhere down here. We're going to choose page view. And here, we want it to fire on some page views. So we have a variety of conditions that we can set. And there's some built-in variables already showing here. So we're going to do the page path, which is just that small portion of the URL I had copied earlier. We're going to do equals. Then I'm going to copy in just that page and hit save. And because we made a change, I'm going to refresh the preview and go back to the website. And just always remember to refresh when you're checking these things again. Perfect. So in the summary, because we're on the pricing page, we can see that the HotJar tag fired. So right now, HotJar is only going to be capturing screen recordings and heat maps for this specific page. We can verify it's not firing anywhere else by just going to a different URL. So I'll go back to the home page. And here in the summary, under tags fired, we're missing HotJar. And if you scroll down, you'll actually see tags not fired, and you'll see HotJar there.
So just to clarify why I wanted HotJar limited to the pricing page, the app actually has a limit of 100 screen recordings on its free tier. So I wanted it to fire only when people are actually interested in the API, and I'm gauging interest by people going on pricing.
Exactly. It'll only capture people who are on that specific page that we put into that trigger. So we're now going to add Drift to the website. Drift is a platform for communicating with website visitors. You've probably seen it before. It's just a chat box that looks kind of like this. So to add the Drift code, we're going to go back to a new tag. So because Drift doesn't have an integration, a native integration with Tag Manager, we're going to use custom HTML. Okay, so we're just going to paste in the Drift code. All right, and then that is going to be our tag. We just have to set the trigger. And again, we're just going to set it to all pages for now. I'll show you a cool trick you can do, particularly for this one. Once we preview it, then we save the tag. And again, we're going to just verify with a preview. So I'll refresh. All right, so we can see in our preview the drift fired, and up there it is. So one cool thing with Tag Manager is I know that we've shown page view triggers either for all pages or certain subsets of pages that you can show tags on. You can actually tie tags to other events on your website. So on Alex's site, he has this little demo of what his tool does, the extractor API. So you can just click this and it'll pull text from this URL here. And what we can actually do is we can set drift to only show up once somebody clicks that extract button. And that's useful, for example, if you don't want to overwhelm your customers with a chat right away on the site, you want to wait till they take some action. So we're going to set up a trigger on that extract button so that drift will show up only when somebody clicks the extract. Okay, so I'm going to just go back into the drift tag, and we're going to change the trigger. So I'm going to remove this, the all pages, click in, and here I'm going to make a new trigger. And I will name it extract demo click. So under trigger configuration, in order to get some clicks, we actually have to go to all elements under clicks here. And then we want it to fire on some clicks, not all clicks. And now we're going to choose the conditions of these clicks to make the trigger fire. So what we're going to choose is the click ID, which is the CSS ID of the element that's being clicked. There's a really simple way to find that. We'll go to the web page, then we're going to right click our button and choose inspect element. And this is just the HTML of that button. And we see here there's demo extract button is the ID. So I'm going to copy that. And then go back into Google Tag Manager. And I'm actually going to just set this to equals so we know for sure it won't fire on something if it has a similar name. So just to recap, what we've done here is we've created a trigger that's going to be a click, and it's only going to happen on elements where the click ID, that's the CSS ID, is equal to demo extract button. And that brings us right back to our drift tag. So we see that the new trigger is everywhere somebody clicks on the website down under triggering. Okay, so to verify that, again, we're just gonna refresh, go back to the web page, and click reload. So far, we see the only thing that's fired is the analytics page view, which was set up before. We don't see drift like we saw before. I'm gonna close the demo box here for a sec. And so now when I click extract, we should see drift pop up in the bottom right. Perfect. So you can see the chat box appeared right here, and now we can chat. That's a pretty quick introduction to Tag Manager, but you should have a good idea of what tags are and what triggers are. Just to recap very quickly, we implemented the HotJar tag first on all pages, and then we limited the pages that it would be viewed on by controlling the trigger. Then we also added the drift tag and set it up so that it only fires when somebody clicks the extract demo button. So we have to just remember to actually publish the container. So publishing the container is just going to mean that our website's visitors can actually fire the tags when they visit the website. So all you have to do for that is click submit up in the upper right. Okay, so we have to publish our version of Tag Manager, which just means that visitors to the website will, fire the tag so we can track actual user activity. We do need a version name here.
It's really good to be descriptive here, just like Tag Manager suggests, because what versioning does is help you roll back if you did something wrong with the tags. So if you set up some kind of trigger wrong or whatever, or you don't want to tag anymore, you can actually roll back your version, just like when you back up your computer and you want to go back to an earlier state, you just choose a backup from the past. So it's pretty smart to name this as descriptively as possible. So if you do want to go back to a previous version, you'd know exactly what was in that version. So it is definitely recommended to have a descriptive version name and a little description at the bottom so you know what you're rolling back to.
What's a descriptive name here we can put in?
So we can actually just name the tags that we added. We could do something like analytics-drift-hotjar.
And then I like to put in the description just exactly what we did. So I'm going to do set extract demo click event for drift and analytics, and then set hotjar on pricing page. So we have that. So if we have to roll back and view the description, we can just see that description. And I'm going to go click publish. I'm not going to sing like no one is listening. And now we have our tag manager release. Here's the version summary. Here's what's in it, what we did. And now it is live. So when you visit extractorapi.com and click around, we will see the events.
Thanks for joining me today, and hit subscribe. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below. Till next time.